Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Into the Massiverse, where we are going to be discussing A Court of Mist and Fury, the second book in the ACOTAR series, and one of my favourite books of all time. As you will have noticed, the shelf order has changed between episode 9 and episode 10. What I've decided to do is that I will rejig these shelves so that whatever book I'm talking about is the one closest to my face, just in case any of you were confused as to why has she moved the books around. It's because I want the one I'm talking about closest to me. With that cleared up, and delve even further into the Massiverse and discuss A Court of Mist and Fury, the second book in the ACOTAR series. Now, this book picks up 3 months after the end of ACOTAR, and Feyre is currently living in the Spring Court with Tamlin. But things are not going swimmingly. The two of them are engaged to be married. Yay. But Feyre has serious PTSD from her time under the mountain back in A Court of Thorns and Roses. She is having some seriously bad nightmares. When she wakes up from those nightmares, she's literally throwing up, and homeboy Tamlin's not even waking up. He's literally in bed beside her and just lets her deal with it all herself, which is not that cool of him. He literally pretends not to notice, and he refuses to let her go and visit the nearby village. Now that there's no curse on anybody, and all of the masks are Gone. Fairy wants to explore the rest of the Spring Court, and Tamlin's like, no. He has this whole thing about keeping her safe now because he did watch her die. To be fair, that is quite traumatic to go through. But Feyre assumes that when she marries Tamlin, she will become his High Lady, and she is told in no uncertain terms that there are no High Ladies. She will simply become a lady and be married to a High Lord. But the title of High Lady, that does not exist. And we're sat there going, smells of sexism. Now, even this early on in the book, she is wondering what life will be like once she's married. Because as I've said before, Homegirl is a doer. She wants to be productive. And she did kind of struggle with her initial time in the Spring Court, just kind of not having anything to do. And are we looking ahead at a life just kind of that? Maybe. We also find out about the concept of a mating bond. In the Sarah J Maas universe, the concept of soulmates does in fact exist. Now, Feyre's love for Tamlin was enough to break a magic spell that had all of Prythian enslaved, yet a mating bond between the two of them doesn't seem to have really taken place. So Feyre is hoping that it will, just giving time, but she's a little bit concerned that this supposed guarantee that they are soulmates hasn't really occurred, but we do know they are supposed to be incredibly, incredibly rare. Feyre's just thinking, well, surely. You also get to meet one of the characters in this series I hate with the fire of 1,000 suns, the High Priestess, Yanthe. She is one of the 12 High Priestesses of Prythian, and she is planning the wedding between Feyre and Tamlin. She's basically made an alliance with Tamlin on behalf of the 12 priestesses. And she and Tamlin are like super duper chummy. And you read in the book like, not a fan. Not liking. This does not seem like a girl's girl, you know? At the beginning of this book, what we're really seeing is Feyre gradually losing autonomy and control of her life. That's the exchange she's making in order to marry Tamlin. Her life is very much not feeling her own. It's like a shoe that doesn't quite fit. But she's just gone through so much in ACOTAR to earn this, to deserve this. And the reality in book 2, it's not quite sitting right for her. The day of the wedding approaches, and she is still very much a emotional wreck. We're talking pretty severe PTSD. She's now a murderer. She killed innocent Faye during the final trial, and this really, really bothers her. She actually sees herself as a murderer now, and nothing's really being done to help rectify that and help her get over this very, very serious trauma. And when it comes to the wedding with Tamlin, she has one request. She doesn't want anything red. She doesn't want red roses because it reminds her of blood. And that is a serious trigger for Feyre's trauma. But of course, like everything else to do with the wedding, Yanthe just does whatever she wants. Feyre is in arguably the most ugly dress imaginable. We're talking full cupcake gown. So she's feeling uncomfortable. This is nothing like the wedding she imagined for herself. And as she goes to walk down the aisle towards Tamlin on her wedding day, what roses are everywhere? Red roses. And so she's about to walk down the aisle and she's majorly triggered. And all she keeps thinking to herself is, someone please make this stop. Something's wrong. I should not be doing this right now. Her mind's actually kind of screaming that, like, please, someone, anyone stop this. Someone come help me. And that is when Rhysand shows up in the middle of the aisle in a dramatic puff of black smoke. Rhysand arrives and decides at that very moment to claim his 1 week of every month with Feyre. It's literally been a whole quarter. It's been 3 months. No word from Rhysand at all. But today, on their wedding day, and he comes in with so much drama, so much pizzazz and riz. Everyone in the spring court is horrified because he's dark and malevolent in their eyes. And he literally whisks away the bride from the wedding. And you're reading it going, yay! Because we know from Feyre's inner monologue that she doesn't want to get married, but no one else does. So it looks like he just kidnaps her. So Rhysand is going to take her all the way to the Night Court, which is up north in Prythian. And Tamlin doesn't stop him because Feyre and Rhysand, they've made this deal. And Fey deals are pretty much sacred. If you do not follow them, you're basically going to die. So Tamlin has to let Rhysand just take her away for a week. And this is where Feyre gets to see more of Prythian than she has before because she is taken to Rhysand's Night Court. Now, Feyre's heard a lot about the Night Court. One of the names the other courts use for it is the Court of Nightmares. So she is a little bit scared of going to Rhys's supposed nightmare court. But when she arrives, she's basically taken to this beautiful palace and just kind of left on her own. Like, it's all totally chill, she's totally safe, and there is nothing scary there, like, at all. We have a brilliant confrontation that there is an awful lot of fan art of, where obviously she has a massive go at Rhys, you just interrupted my wedding. And he's like, you can't really tell me that you're mad about it though. And we love Rhys's energy. We've loved it from book 1. But this book, Rhys, she literally gets so mad at him as they're bickering and arguing over the wedding that she didn't want to go through with, but she can't admit that she didn't want to go through with, that she throws a shoe at the back of Rhysand's head and he whips round. As the argument's going to continue, she lobs the other one at him as well and hits him. And we love that for Feyre. She's obviously taken out of her ugly, ugly wedding dress, which Rhysand does comment on, because the dress is just kind of eating her up. It's so quite clearly not something she wants to be in. And she is given a set of Night Court clothes. And we find out that, like, in the Night Court, women wear trousers. It is all very casual. It's beautiful, actually. But obviously, Feyre has to pretend that she doesn't like any of it. But Homegirl's like, oh my God, I'm now comfortable. I've been forced to wear all of these frou-frou, pretty girly dresses that just totally aren't me. And here I am now, in clothes that feel like pajamas. Amazing. But she's very much in the headspace of, I'm not allowed to enjoy being here or anything about this place. Now, Feyre's opinion of Rhys hasn't really improved much. You know, she has kind of gotten to know him as Amarantha's right-hand man. But one of the first things Rhysand insists upon is that during her weeks with him, she will learn to read. And we're like, oh, that's actually really nice of Rhys. And we find out that Feyre does know all of her letters. She had some rudimentary lessons in reading, but obviously everything went wrong with her family before she fully got on to reading entire sentences and words. So she can kind of sound stuff out, but it takes her a long time. She's not particularly confident or good at it. And the way Rhysand starts getting her to learn to read is he gives her example sentences and writes them on a sheet of paper, gives them to her, and she has to write them out several times. But the sentences Rhysand likes to give Feyre are sentences like, Rhysand is the best High Lord ever. Rhysand is the most handsome High Lord ever. And you're reading it going, oh my God, Rhys has so much riz. Like, it's really cute. He's being nice and helpful. He's noticed her lacking a skill that literally could have led to her death in the past. First thing he wants to do, address it. All this does is highlight the fact that Tamlin never wanted to teach Feyre to read. He also insists that Feyre needs to learn how to shield her mind because we find out that Rhysand is a Daimati and he can read other people's minds. Lots of Fae have this skill. And he says, well, Feyre, most Fae are taught as children to protect their mind from other people trying to read it. You, however, are an open book. So he starts giving her lessons on how to rise and drop mental shields so the two of them can continue to talk in their minds, as we found out they could do in book 1. During her first trip to the Night Court, we also get to see Rhysand's cousin Morrigan, who is actually quite anxious to become friends with Feyre. She meets her and is like, oh my goodness, this is Feyre. Please be my friend. And we love that. More like Rhysand is gorgeous. Funnily enough, I hear the description of a beautiful blonde woman and I go, well, of course. And Feyre doesn't really know what to make of More, but she's incredibly nice to her. And she gets to see the dynamic of Rhys talking to someone who he clearly loves a great deal. The two of them call each other Rhys and More, and those are pretty much the names we're going to use going forward. They are called Rhys and More rather than Rhysand and Morrigan. While she's there at the Night Court, Rhysand kind of realizes that Feyre has a very limited understanding of the world. Like, she's lived there for months and months now, and she is being kept intentionally ignorant of the wider politics at play. And Rhysand's like, well, that's not cool. You should know what's going on. He's also a massive, massive Yanthe hater. Okay, he does not like her at all. And he is like, the only person you not knowing anything about benefits are people like Yanthe. So let's get you up to speed pretty damn quick during your first day here as to what else is going on in our world. He lets her know that war is coming to Prythian. And Feyre's like, I beg your pardon? And he says, yes, and if war happens, as an FYI, that handy veil that separates the Fae from the humans, aka your family, that will crumble. And obviously Feyre starts worrying about her family, and you're kind of reading it going, yeah, no surprise people wanted to keep this from Feyre. Like, more so than any other Fae in existence, she is heavily invested in protecting humanity. This homegirl was one. Rhysand tells her the King of Hybern has been planning to reclaim the mortal lands for an entire century. He's never given up. He's just planning to have another crack at it. And we find out Prythian and all the Fae in Prythian are pretty much the only thing standing in his way. And Rhysand asks Feyre, hey, look, when you go back, could you please find out if Tamlin and the Spring Court will join us, the Night Court, in protecting Prythian and protecting the humans when Hybern eventually comes to attack? Can you find out if Tamlin will be my ally in basically protecting our home? And we're like, Rhys wants to be friends. Rhys wants to work together. Okay. Rhysand also says to Feyre before she heads back, look, I think when each of the High Lords gave you a bit of their power, they literally gave you a bit of their power. It seems to me like you can be using magic, but unlike anyone else, you've got little bits of every different court's kind of magic. Because he sees her doing stuff and is like, that's my magic. Like, I can see you doing stuff that comes from me. And I have no doubt that you have bits from all the other High Lords, whether that be Tamlin, whether that be Byron, the Autumn Court Lord. I think you could do kind of anything. And we're gagged. We're like, oh my God. Feyre's just been messing around doing F all for like 3 months. 1 week with Rhys, she has found out a ton of stuff, both about the world and about herself, which is super exciting. While she's there with Rhysand, Morrigan comes back and delivers news to Rhys in front of Feyre that a temple in Caesarea has been attacked and that all of the priestesses at this temple have been killed. And so obviously Feyre is like, oh my God, this war is real. Like, there are actually bad things happening in Prythian. No one's been telling me up until now. Obviously, as far as Mor and Rhys are concerned, this is info that should be shared with Feyre. They're sharing it with each other and they're doing it in front of her because they're including her in important conversations. We hear Mor explain to Rhys that two other characters we haven't met yet, Cassian and Asriel, believe that this particular attack isn't necessarily Hybern at all. It has something to do with rogue Illyrian clans. And Rhysand has to leave to go and meet with them. I'm not sure if it's actually explained at this point of the book, but the Illyrians are a part of Rhysand's Night Court, but they are a different kind of Fae. There are also thoughts on whether they are Fae or aren't, but that's a different discussion. These guys literally have wings. They are bat-like wings, and it is where the fan favorite Bat Boys moniker comes from. But the Illyrians are separate from the main courts of the Night Court. Please note I said courts, not court. And the Illyrians are very much the military force that the Night Court relies upon. They are like a warrior people that live out in the mountains. And now that Rhysand has to go and meet them, he's like, okay, Feyre, you can go home. Then she returns to the Spring Court. Tamlin and Lucien, once they know that she's like absolutely fine, start interrogating her about the Night Court. Because it turns out no one's really allowed into the Night Court and no one knows a lot about what it's like, what they do there. They are super duper secretive and just super duper scary. And Feyre's like, well, I didn't see anything. I just stayed in the same place. I was just in this like really pretty castle, which both Tamlin and Lucien find really frustrating because they're like, this is an opportunity for us to find out about something we would never get the chance to go and see ourselves. Come on, Feyre, get us the goss. Now that she's back home, Feyre starts showing signs of this growing power. Well, actually growing powers. She manages to burn the dinner table while she's sat eating there, and she accidentally enters Lucien's mind, which makes her a Daimatai like Rhysand. By the time she next has to visit the Night Court, the first thing Rhysand notices is that she has lost an awful amount of weight because Homegirl is not sleeping well and is throwing up. She's just majorly stressed all of the time, and she has this unaddressed trauma that is really, really messing her up, and it is now having a visible and physical impact on her. When she gets back to the Night Court, she's just so obviously not okay, and Rhys is quite worried about her. But her reading is improving, as is the shielding of her mind. So Rhys realizes she's been practicing. Even though she has been down in the Spring Court, in the 3 weeks that they're apart, she is carrying on with the lessons Rhys has given her. At the Spring Court, Tamlin will not allow Feyre to practice and use the powers she has gained from the High Lords, because he reckons if the other High Lords find out that Feyre actually has a bit of their power, something that they did not really agree to when they helped resurrect her, it's something that happened that none of them have noticed, and he's concerned that if they do notice, they will want their power back. High Lords do not like to share, but Lucien is quite adamant that she needs to practice how to use these powers she has. She has magic. She should know how to protect herself with it. And this is where Tamlin and Lucien really do start disagreeing on how Feyre should be treated and what she is and isn't allowed to do.